This is augforums.com Real Talk, an unfiltered, independent perspective on Acumatica Cloud ERP. My name is Tim Rodman, and I want to mention three things in this pre-recorded intro before we get started. First, thank you to our sponsors. Our first sponsor is Paya. Paya offers Acumatica users a suite of industry-leading payment orchestration tools. Far beyond native Acumatica payments, Paya enables EMV NFC terminals for countersale. They offer a frictionless customer portal through their click-to-pay solution, and they support most e-commerce platforms and point-of-sale solutions used with Acumatica, such as One Retail and AcuPOS. And best of all, omni-channel reconciliation is available for all their solutions. Our second sponsor is DataSelf. DataSelf Analytics is a revolutionary reporting solution that enables organizations to make the most informed decisions faster and easier than ever. It uniquely simplifies business intelligence, empowers anyone to build and access dashboards, and delivers critical business insight when and where you need it. Our third sponsor is Aldrich Web Solutions. Are you a distributor using Acumatica, yet struggling with an e-commerce fit? US-based Aldrich Web Solutions out of Marion, Illinois, has 2 decades of experience helping distributors find success online. Our team of experts built the integration, creating websites that work effortlessly with Acumatica. With our reputation for swift customer service and meticulous attention to detail, we are the perfect fit for distributors needing online solutions. Please take a minute to support this podcast by clicking each one of the sponsor banners located at augforums.com/sponsors. Our sponsors track clicks, and every click helps to support this podcast. The second thing I'd like to mention is that I'm always looking for victims. I mean guests. If you use Acumatica in any capacity, no matter how small, I'd love to talk with you. Check out augforums.com/podcast and click the link near the top of the page to learn more about being a guest on the podcast. Third and finally, I'd love to see you listed on my Rolodex. Check out augforums.com/Rolodex to find out who else is using Acumatica, and read the instructions at the top to see how you can add yourself to the list. All right, that's it for the pre-recorded intro. Let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another augforums.com live broadcast. Today's live broadcast is going to be fairly technical, but it's a situation that I did for a client a little while ago, and it's one of those things where I wanted to record it and get it out there just in case there's someone else out there who would find either this whole technique useful or pieces of the technique. And I'll leave it at that. I am recording this ahead of time so I can blur some information out, but I will be on the broadcast when it goes live, and I'll be chiming in on the comments on both YouTube and LinkedIn in case you want to ask questions and interact there. All right, so with that, let's go ahead and talk about what I'm going to show. So the thing I'm going to show here is a challenge that it's to overcome a challenge that I ran into at a client where they had a report in Acumatica Report Designer. And if you think about Report Designer, you put a lot of work into designing the report. So the report runs, then there's some calculations that happen, and then there's the output of the report. And in this particular case, I needed to make some pretty substantial changes to the underlying report calculations and how they were being done to speed the report up, just make it more reliable, etc. But I wasn't expecting the report output to change very much. Mostly it should stay the same. I was expecting there to be some differences, but I wanted to identify where those differences were going to be and take a look at them and make sure they made sense. So the challenge I had was that, the Acumatica Report Designer, it outputs the report, but then I needed a way to kind of get all that information and be able to analyze it, and be able to analyze both the report before my changes and the report after my changes and compare the two together. And then I had an additional complication, and you can see this is why you might not care about a lot of these details, but I had an additional complication that the report took so long to run that I couldn't run it wide open. And in my case, I had to run it by vendor, and I'll show you that in a minute, just to get it to run. I had to pick something to say, run this one, this one, this one, this one, so I could get all the data. I couldn't just run it wide open or the report would time out. So it's a situation where if you've got a report in Acumatica and it's just taking forever to run and you're looking to revamp it, this is a technique that you might use, or at least pieces of this technique, to help you troubleshoot that report. So we're going to be fairly technical here today. All right, so the report I'll show you is, this is the report, and I'm just going to run it for one vendor, just so you get an idea of what it looks like. So if we run this report, we can see where this is for buyers at a company, and they're looking at this to determine what to buy, how much to buy, and this gives them the information that they need at their fingertips. So if I scroll down here, you can see here's an item, and I'm probably going to be graying out some of this stuff, including what I just highlighted. But you got an item, you got the vendor, you can see the PO it's coming in on, you can see the demand history across the last 5 weeks, an average, it's like a weighted average. Then you got days supply, a projected out date, the last time it's been received, the last cost, the quantity on hand, reserve quantity, the average daily demand, the last landed cost, a bunch of information on this report. And you can also tell that this is not all on one row. Right? You can see average weekly, and then you actually go down. Quantity hand, reserved, average daily, last landed, but all of this stuff belongs to this item. Now, that part is taken care of by the export to Excel. You can use the functionality in Report Designer to control where stuff gets exported to when you export to Excel. And so that's already been done on this report. And if I open up the Excel export, I can see there's only one row per item. And as I scroll across, it has not just the fields that were on the first line, but it's got that quantity on hand, next PO, the vendor information, day supply, out date, last received, etc., etc. So it's taken that stuff that was going like this, and it's put it all on one nice and tidy, neat line in the Excel export. So that's what I've got, but my challenge again was that I couldn't run this wide open. I couldn't wipe out the vendor and run it, or it would time out. It wouldn't run. So I had to come up with a mechanism to first automate the export to Excel. And I'm going to do that with the business event. I'll show you that. We'll have the business event go through vendor by vendor and run the export to Excel. And then because I need somewhere to send it, I just send it by email. So I'm just sending that Excel file out for each vendor by email, and it's going to land in my inbox. Then next, we're going to have just a simple Outlook rule that says, hey, anything that comes in with a certain subject, just auto put it in a certain folder, so it even just bypasses the inbox. Then after that, we're going to use Power Automate. And Power Automate is a tool from Microsoft. There's two pieces to it. One is Power Automate that you can do just in your browser in the cloud. So we'll use the cloud piece to ripple through the folder. Now that we've put all the Excel files in a folder in Outlook, we want it to go through all those files all those emails, pull out each of the Excel attachments, and put them in a OneDrive folder. Then we're going to use Power Automate Desktop to do something that there's probably a better way to do, but for some reason, when you export a bunch of files out of Acumatica to your local machine, the only way I've been able to figure out so far, and there's got to be a better way. So if you're watching this and you know a better way, please drop it in the comments right now. The problem is it wants you to open the file and save it. That's the only way I can make it happy. I've tried the right click on it, properties, unblock it. That still doesn't make it happy. I need to open it and save it in order to be able to use it in the next step. So we're going to use Power Automate Desktop to basically have it go through all of the Excel files in a OneDrive folder, open each one, save it, close it, go to the next one, etc. And again, some of these techniques, you might be like, oh, that little piece I could use for something else, right? So I'm just kind of showing you something that solved a real world problem, but you might find that some of these pieces might help you solve a different real world problem. And I just wanted to document this in the form of a live broadcast for myself so I could go back to it in case I need pieces of this or this whole scenario again. But anyways, we'll do that, Power Automate Desktop, and then the last step down here, we'll do some Excel analysis where now we'll be able to compare the version of the report before the changes and all the data across all the vendors to the version of the report after the changes. And there's going to be two different reports, two different report IDs, because they're both running at the same time before the client converts over to the new version of the report. And so now we'll be able to analyze it in Excel. We'll use Power Query to do that. And we'll be able to see, okay, the values before and after, and we'll be able to look for any differences. So pretty technical, but again, just wanted to get it out there. If you're not interested at this point, I'll catch you on the next live broadcast. But for those who are interested, let's go ahead and proceed. So let's start off. We already looked at the report output. So that was this report right here. It's got a section for each item, information about that item. And so what I've done is I created a business event. Here's the name of it. We're doing trigger by action. There's the action name, and it's sitting on this generic inquiry screen. So if I view that screen, here's my generic inquiry, and all this generic inquiry is doing is it's showing me one row per vendor, but it's looking at all of the items, the default items for each vendor. So we can tell here that there's 242 items assigned to vendor 337. There's 157 items assigned to vendor 726, etc. And there's 305 vendors total. And this is why I needed to set up this whole clunky method, because I didn't want to go through and run this report 305 times and then do it another 305 times on the new version of the report. So that's why I set this up. And you can tell this is a generic inquiry up here. So when you click this action button, what Acumatica is going to do is it's going to go through and it's going to hit each vendor, and it's going to run each version of the report for each vendor. And you can see that here. So it's going to go row by row, and for the first vendor, it's going to do two things. First, it's going to run the RD200006, that's the screen ID report. If we'd open this up, we can see that it's giving it a subject it's putting the vendor ID in the subject. It's using the screen ID of this particular report. There's nothing in the body of the email. And then it's attaching the report. So here's where it runs the report. It tells it to run it in the Excel format. And down here on the bottom, we can see that here's where it's running it for that specific vendor. And then the other one of these, this next one, is doing the same exact thing. It's just doing it for the other version of the report, the NVSO6115. And this was actually the original version of the report. The other one's the new version of the report. But it's doing the same thing. It's attaching the Excel export and running the report just for that one vendor, attaching it to an email in Excel, sending the email out. So all of that happens when you click on this button right here. Now I'm not going to do this because this client's environment, it took like an hour to an hour and a half to run, but it was reliable. It just took it a while to churn through all the vendors and do its thing. So after that process is done, and here, let's go ahead, let's back this thing up here. After that process is done, that business event has run the report for all 305 vendors, the old version of the report, and the new version of the report. So it's run 610 reports, and it sent 610 emails, because each email is just the report attached in Excel. And then the next step is just a simple Outlook rule. So if I flip over to Outlook, you can see that I've got, well, first of all, you can see I've got a folder called Buyer Guide Testing for the original version of the report, the NVSO 6115. Then I've got a folder for the new version of the report for the RD20, a bunch of zeros. And if I look in my rules, I can see that I've got a rule for both the RD2 version of the report. It's just saying if the subject includes Buyer Guide Testing dash RD2, a bunch of zeros, then just automatically move that email into the RD2 folder. And then same thing for the next rule down here. You can see it's doing the same thing but for the other version of the report. So that is my rules. And so after that ran, there's nothing in here right now, but there would have been 305 emails in this folder with each email having an Excel file attachment, and 305 emails in this other folder. So then we come over here and we hit Power Automate in the cloud. Now here's where things start to get pretty involved, and why I just wanted to document it in a video and be done with it. Unfortunately, right now, I don't know of a way to export a Power Automate script. There might be some way to do it, but I don't know how. So this is kind of my way of documenting it. So let's take a look at that. Power Automate used to be called Flow, and so I still access it at flow.microsoft.com, and then it'll forward you to make.powerautomate.com. You can see your flows in the My Flows area, and you can see I've got a flow called Get Attachments from Email folder. Now, if you were to do a new flow, you would want to do, the one I did was Instant Cloud Flow. So it just means you can choose manually trigger a flow. I'm not going to have this flow automatically get triggered by something. I'll just manually trigger it, run it when I want to run it. And you can tell with that icon right there, it's a manually triggered flow. So if we edit this, let's take a look at it. Here's that manual trigger. So that would automatically be in there when you create your flow. And then you start adding steps. So you hit this plus button and you do add action, and you can see the next step is called initialize variable. So you would just search for initialize, and here you can see initialize variable. If I click this, it's going to add another one in there. But I'll delete this because I already have one. Alright, so initialize variable, and I gave the variable a name. I called it block of 25. It's got a value of 1. It's an integer. And what else do I have in here? Looks like nothing in the settings. I never touched the code view personally, and then there's some info in the about. So I think going forward, I'm not even going to click into the code view or the about on each one of these steps because there's nothing you would need to do there. All right, and then next we have a do step. So this is like a do while type of logic. So let's see, how did we get that going? You can see if I collapse it, there's 3 actions in this step. Let's see, how do we look at it? I know we can look at it. What's wrong here? Well, maybe not. I guess I can't click on that one. So what you would do is you would add in a do. probably a do while or do until. There we go, do until. So that would give you, let's try, let me just make sure I got the right one. I'm going to add one on the bottom here. Let's say do until. Yeah, so that's how you get the do until in there. And then you see, so okay, I know what I need to do then. So I need to, here, it's actually on the bottom part. So in my do until, if I double click on that, you can see I'm going to do until the block of 25 variable is greater than 16. So I just put in an arbitrary number just in case this thing got out of control. It would only run for 15 increments of 25, which is 25 times 15, a really big number of items, way more than the 305 that I actually had in the system. And you can, if you click in here, you can see this little lightning bolt icon. You can click on this, and this is where you could say, give me the block of 25 variable. That's how you would populate that block of 25 in there. And I don't think I did anything else. I think I just took all the defaults down here, and same thing in the settings, took the defaults. So that gives us our do while loop. And then the next step in here is we want it to get emails. So this you would just search for, I'm not going to do it, but you'd search for get emails. You can see that's an Outlook icon there, or Office 365 Outlook, I don't remember. You'd want yours to look like that icon. And you can see it's getting all the emails out of a specific folder, this NVSO in this case. Now what I did is I just made this for one of the folders. I ran it, and then when it was done, I switched it to the other folder by using this icon, and then I would just switch it to the RD2 folder and have it do its thing on that folder rather than create two separate ones. But other than the folder, I think everything else I left as default, but you can see what I chose here. And you can see I'm only grabbing 25 emails at a time. That's why I called my variable block of 25, because it's only looking at 25 emails at a time. I don't remember why I did that. I think there was some, oh, it looks like it can only retrieve a max of 25. That must be one why. Just 25 at a time. So I get the email, or get the emails. Then for each email, and you'll see there's actually 2 for eaches in here. And I think the actual name is called apply to each. So if you were to search for that, this is the one you'd grab. It's called apply to each. And then let's see, for each, the first thing is for each email, this body value. So if you use this lightning bolt icon, and you can see here, your option is to get the body value. If you click that, that's how you can get that inserted in there. So that's going to grab for each email. Now in our case, there's only going to be one attachment, one Excel file attachment on each email. But there could be more than one on an email, right? And so when you tell Power Automate to do this, you need to tell it to go through each email, and then you put in another loop to tell it, you can see here, to go through each email attachment. So if I click the lightning bolt in here now, ooh, I actually don't remember how I got this. Let's see. I might have to do this extra step. So I'm doing the FX, dynamic content, and maybe in here. Uh-oh, I don't remember how I got this in here, but you'd want it to look like, you'd want it to get it to look like this. So again, I don't remember how I did that. Somehow I got it to then ripple through the attachments. So is there anything in the settings? I don't recall how. All right, well, that's the best I can do for now. Sorry. We'll move along. So this is now going to go through each attachment. And then when we get within an attachment, you know what? This is bugging me. I'm going to pause my recording here. When you see this, it'll broadcast live. I'm going to pause this, see if I can find the answer to this. Okay. Whew, I found it. So I also found something else. You can type a slash, a forward slash on your keyboard. You just want to do it typing wise. Or you can just use these icons here. So it was actually the lightning bolt, and then there was this see more button. I was missing that. So if you click that, now you can see the attachments. And if I click that, now I can get the attachments value in there. Okay, so we're looping through each attachment, and now for each attachment, we're going to create a file in OneDrive. And you can see here's the path to the folder where we're going to put it. And so if I were to pop over to OneDrive here, it's going to put it in buyer guide testing, the NVSO, and then when we'd run it again, we would just come in and manually change these values to run it for the RD2 values. And here's where it comes up with the name. So let's see, how did I get, I must have got it in the see more again. Let's see, there should be a name in here. So I think probably that Microsoft Power Automate changed a little bit since I last did this. So I think it's attachments name. So use attachments name. So that'll give us the file name in OneDrive, and then we need to tell it where the content is, and that would be the content. Let's see if that's got the same name. Attachments content. So that's a little bit different now too. So attachments content. So now we're telling Power Automate, take that attachment out of the email, put it in this OneDrive folder with this name, and use the content from the attachment. Then the next step, we just want to tell the Outlook piece, and you can tell this is a OneDrive icon here. This is an Outlook icon here. So now we're going to tell Outlook to move the file, and you identify the file with the ID. So it's probably got a different name also. Oh, it looks, there it is, ID. That hasn't changed. Oh no, that's not the right one. And actually, this is good to point out. See how this is the OneDrive icon? If I click that, that's a OneDrive icon, that's an Outlook icon. I want to have the Outlook icon, so this lightning bolt icon just looks back to the previous step. Ah, here we go. A little further down, I would do in the emails area, I would do message ID. So it'd be this one right here. So you can tell things have just renamed a little bit since I did this, but hopefully you can follow along there. And then I'm telling it I want to put it in this done folder. So that was just my way of having two folders in Outlook. One is the files that have not been dumped into OneDrive yet, and then the next one down, these are all the files that have been processed. And then when I get out of this whole thing, so I get out of the loop, so I've looped through each of the 25 emails, each attachment within the emails, with only one attachment in our case, and then we come down here to this increment variable. So you want to use increment variable, and you want to, actually I guess you don't have to do anything. You don't even have to put a value in, it just knows to increment it by a value of 1. So then it's going to go to the next block of 25 emails. So that's how you're getting it to ripple through all the emails in the folder, all 305. You manually change the values to run through the other folder. And at the end of the day, when it's all finished, you would now have all those Excel files in a OneDrive folder. So now we have landed here. So all of our Excel files are now in OneDrive. And now there's this really annoying piece where I can't actually read the data in those Excel files unless the only way I know is to open them up each individually. So I could have done this manually, but basically I would have to double click, open the Excel file, save it, close the Excel file, go to the next one. Open it, save it, close it. There's got to be another way. If anyone out there knows, please let me know. But I know there is this right-click properties, and sometimes this will show blocked here, and there's an unblock button. I tried doing that. That still didn't make it available to the next step in Power Query, which we'll look at in a moment. So I couldn't figure it out. So what I just did is I did a Power Automate desktop script. So it's not really a script. It's just a process. So here's Power Automate desktops. Now this is not running in my browser, this is just running on my machine. It's this buyer guide testing one, so you just create a new flow. And this is all running locally. I'm trying to remember, like for this client's example, there were about 305 Excel files, and that Power Automate Cloud step probably took about 15-20 minutes to ripple through the Outlook folder and put the attachments into the OneDrive folder. And then this part took even a little bit longer because this has to open each one up in Excel. But you can see same idea here. It's just the desktop version. So you would search for get files and folder. You can see I'm telling it to get all the files in this folder. And then same thing as last time. Once this finishes, we would just change the folder to the RD2 folder. We do a for each. And then each of these steps stores its results in a variable, just like it's just a little different user interface than the browser version. But we're telling it to iterate over the files, which I think I got here. Yeah. So you just double click, grab it like that. So for each file, we want it to actually launch Excel, and that is what it's called. It's called, see, that one changed the name. Nope, still launch Excel. So you launch Excel, and I had to do a formula for this one. So this is the kind of stuff, reasons why I wanted to document this. There's a concatenate formula that's concatenating the folder with the current item name, which would be the current item in the folder. And so let's see, then we also had this and open with following document. So I'm not just opening a blank Excel file. I checked this off. I don't think I did anything in advanced. No, didn't do anything there. So launch Excel, open that particular file, and then just save. There's nothing fancy here. Just have it save the document for that Excel document, and then close Excel. So then close Excel, and then it just goes to the next one. So now it's going to loop through every item in the folder. And this one took a while. This might have taken 45 minutes or so to run. I can't remember exactly. But that's the kind of thing I did not want to do manually. What if I miss something, right? So I'm just having Power Automate do that. A totally annoying step, but that's the way I did it. So now at the end, you've now got Excel files in a OneDrive folder that can be read. And the last step is the Excel analysis piece. So this I use Power Query for. And if we come over here, you can see now after that last step, Power Automate Desktop, you now have a separate Excel file for every vendor. You can see there's 304 in this case for this version of the report. Then if I go back here and look in this folder, there's 304 for this version of the report. So 608 total files. A lot of Excel files, right? A lot of work if you were to do this manually. And I should say, another reason why I did this is it wasn't just one report change, right? Like I realized, oh, I missed something. So then I had to change the report again and check the data again. So I did this multiple times, and that's why I put it into a process. Okay, so now we've got all the Excel files in these two folders. And the next thing I did was create an Excel file to combine everything together and kind of summarize the information. And the way you can do that is you can use Power Automate. So let's actually save this. Let's put this Excel, what do I call that step? Excel analysis? Let's see. Yeah, Excel analysis Power Query. So let's call it Excel Power Query. And let's put this here. So what we can tell Excel is we can tell it we want to get data over here, data, get data from file. but not just from one Excel file at a time. Hopefully I can skip that. Let's try that again. We want to get it from a whole folder. So we click that, and then we tell it the folder that we want. So we want, let's grab this NVSO folder first. Click open. And then we want to do combine. We want to combine all those files together. And I'm going to do combine and transform just so you can see Power Query open. So what's nice about that is, I did that fairly graphically. And then what it does is it wants to know the structure of the Excel files. And I just use the default. Just use the first Excel file. So it's going to pull it out of a sheet named Sheet 1. And I'll click OK. So we're able to do this fairly graphically, but what it actually creates for us is something that looks kind of scary, but I don't have to worry about all this stuff that it did. All I care about is it was able to combine all the files together. So I can see here's the data out of file 1. If I scroll down, here's vendor 13. Scroll down further, vendor 13 is a big one. There we go, vendor 24, 28, etc. And then all the data across the top. All right, and then I want to close and load to. Now I'm going to start off by just loading it into a table. Let's put it in the existing worksheet. I think this is the way that most people are familiar with loading data into Excel. We just put it in the sheet. You can see it adds a file in for the source, so you know which file each record came from. And it's got all the different Excel files in there. Then it's got all the data from those Excel files across the top. But I want to actually analyze this with Power Pivot because that's a better way, or I think an easier way to pivot on the data. So what I do is right click on this, load to, only create connection, and add data to the data model. Let's do that. That's going to pull all the data out of the worksheet and put it into the Power Pivot area, which you can still see by going up here to Data and clicking Manage Data Model up here. That's going to show us, wow, yeah, that is a lot of data. Across those 305 vendors, there's 6,190 records. That's a lot of data. That's why the report, it wouldn't run wide open. I had to run it one vendor at a time. But you can see the vendor the data is here. So I have to pop into the Power Pivot area to see it. But now what we can do, trying to delete my, I guess it won't let me delete my columns. Let me just do a new sheet here. Okay, so now what we can do is we can do a pivot table from that data model. I'll just load it into the existing sheet. And, sorry, one more thing we need to do here. So let's see, let me do a check here. Sorry, one more thing we need to do. All right, so we grabbed the data from one of the folders. Let's go grab the data from the second folder, the RD folder. Do the same thing. Well, I'm just going to say combine and load to. And we'll put this into the data model. Okay, now let's go right click on one of these. Let's right click on this one down here. My right clicks are not working. Okay, I'm going to use this. Let's see, let's go. How can I get to Power Query? I have it up here on my ribbon, but I think there's another way to get there. Here we go. Launch Power Query Editor. And all right, so now I've got all the data from the NVSO folder, and I've got all the data from the RD20 folder. Now, Let's see, I took some notes down here. I think I want to do one more thing. I want to combine both of these together. So let's highlight both of these by holding down Shift. So you can see I've got one highlighted. I can hold down Shift and click the second one. And then we can do append queries up here on the top. We're going to append this one. Oh, sorry. Maybe I do, let's right click in this area down here, new query, combine, and then do append. We're going to combine or append these two tables here. Okay. So now I'm just going to call this one buyer guide testing. And let's see, what else am I missing? Okay, I'm missing one more thing. So on this first one, this MVSO, I want to add in a column here. Let's add a column, custom column, and let's call it folder. And I'm just going to hard code in. I know that this all came out of the MVSO 6115 folder. And let's go ahead and put this all the way back here. There's got to be a better way to do that. Let's see. Here we go. I can edit this up here. Folder. There we go. Make that text. Okay, so that's from one folder, and then we'll do the same thing here. So this is going to be folder RD2006. Can move this like that, and we'll make it text. Okay, so now when we click on this buyer guide testing, we can know for each record what folder it came from, what the vendor is, etc. Okay. Now, we come back here, we do close and load to. I'm going to do the same thing, create connection, add the data model. And now I don't need those other two to be loaded into the data model. So when this is finished, let's right click. Oh, that's right, I can't right click. Let's come back in here. How am I going to right click? Let's see if I can pause my recorder and right click. Okay, that allowed me to right click. So all I did is I right clicked on this. I chose load to, and that pulled this up, and then I'm just going to not add it to the data model anymore. And then I'm going to do the same thing on this one. I'm going to right click. Oh, now I can right click. Yay. Right click, edit. Oops, sorry, not edit. I'm going to right click, load to, and uncheck add to the data model. Okay, so now I should just have one thing in the data model called buyer guide testing. And this is telling me for each record what folder it's in, the item, etc., etc., etc. So now what I do is in my pivot table that I've added, let's drag in the item number. And we'll drag this. Just drag it into the rows area. So now I can see one row for every item. And I'm just going to take one thing to look at. So let's say, what was one thing that I had some differences on? I think the out date. Let's compare the out date for every item between each version of the report. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a couple of measures. So I'm going to write a measure. I'm going to call it outdate. And my two reports, one starts with the letter N, the other one starts with the letter R. So I'm just going to call one of them outdate N and the other one outdate R. Now, there might be a simpler way to do this, but I'm just going to type in a bunch of DAX stuff here. I'm going to create a table that filters on my buyer guide testing folder and only gets records where the folder equals NVSO 6115. Then I'm going to get the value from here. I'm going to go ahead and tell it to add everything up. There should only be one record for each item, but I'm going to go ahead and add it up just in case there's more than one. And actually, you know what? I'm going to take the max. Max X. Buyer guide testing. And buyer guide testing update. Then we'll return the my value. And we should get a date back. We'll find out if that's true. So we'll hit OK on that. So now I should have a measure down here called outdate N. And I do. Okay, good. And now we'll do the same thing. Actually, it'd probably be best if I just copy the formula here. We'll then create a new measure. I'm going to call it outdate R. Paste that in there, and what was my report? It was R20, a bunch of zeros. Let me just copy this out of here. Like that. I think everything else can stay the same. And our result should be a date. Okay, so we're starting to look good here. And we can see that, let's see if we can find any differences. Most of these are the same, which is good. But I'm pretty sure I picked one that has some differences. So rather than hunt through, I'm going to now do another measure. And actually, let me pause. I need to go look something up. I'll be right back. Okay, I found what I was looking for. So let's do a new measure. And I'm going to call it outdate diff, because I want to check to see for each one of these items is the outdate N value different from the outdate R value. And I'm going to do that using, since these are dates, I need to use a date diff formula. And I'll take the outdate N, compare it to the outdate R, and I'll see how many days there are between them. This will just be a number, and I click OK. So if I do that, let's total all these up. Oh, it looks like there are none. So I picked a bad field. Let's try one other field. And actually, when I paused the video a moment ago, you couldn't see that, but I did check, and I actually already knew this was going to be 0. Let's do it with another one. So there is another field. Let's see. Let's check days supply. That will have some differences. So let's grab, I'll just copy and paste, and we'll do a days supply version of each one of these. So we'll do a days supply N, and this should be whole numbers, so we'll do that. Just drop that on there. What did I do wrong? Oh, I didn't change, so I need to tell it to grab the day supply value, and then I'm going to change this also to a sum, just in case there's more than one. Now that should work. Okay, so now we got numbers. And we'll do a day supply R. Day supply R. Okay. So now this one should have some differences. Let's see if we can spot them. Did I... Let's see, did I make sure that N uses that folder? Yes. Make sure that R uses that folder? Yes. And can we spot any with differences? There's got to be some with differences. What did I do wrong here? Hold on, let's see. Let's just do our... Let's do our diff ones. We'll do days supply diff. And I need to add this on here. Okay, what am I missing? Let me pause the video again. Be right back. Okay, I think I found out what I did wrong. So what I was doing wrong here is in these measures, I'm creating a table that's filtering down to only be that folder, but then I need to use that table in the next step. So we should be doing this. Let's try this. I think I need to do this. Like that. So I want to grab the out date value from the filtered table, not the main table. Okay, so let's try that on all of these. And I might even find some differences in the out date. Let's see. Ah, there are differences. Okay, perfect. All right, so and let's see here. So for some reason the date diff doesn't want to give us a negative number, so I think we have to do something like this. So we're telling it if N is greater than R, then look at the difference between N and R, otherwise look at the difference between R and N, just so we don't get a negative number. Let's see if that works. I might have had it backwards. Let's try the opposite. Okay, there we go. So, perfect. All right, so we actually did have some. Let's get rid of this whole day supply thing. Let's go back. Sorry for the tangent there, but again, just trying to get this out there in case anyone else finds this useful. I know I will probably be referring back to this at some point. So now we do have some differences. So we can see, like for this item, we're calculating out date of August 26th, and the new reports calculating out date of August 23rd. And if we come back and look at those dates, let's see, one of them was 26th, one of them was 23rd, and that one actually makes sense according to the report logic I was doing. So I'm okay with that one. And then if I want to look at, put everything together, oops, I double clicked on that. We can right click and sort on the difference values. Let's sort this way. And now we can just look through the ones that have differences. And actually, in this case, these were all 3-day differences, which I was expecting according to the logic I was doing. So these are all fine. And even these 1-day ones are fine. So even though there's a lot of them, with the logic that I was doing, it passes the test. So at the end of the day here, what I'm showing is a way to compare two different versions of a report that couldn't be run wide open. So we use the business event to export that all to Excel, send it to email, Use the Outlook rule to put that in folders. Use Power Automate in the cloud to take those attachments out of the email folder, put them in OneDrive. Use Power Automate Desktop just to get it to open and save the Excel files. And then we just did that Power Query piece to look at all the Excel files in each folder and compare the data item by item in each one. So now I'm able to see differences in calculations between two different reports. And the reason why you might run into a need for that is because those calculations in Report Designer, they produce an output, but how do I compare them between two different reports, especially when they're drastically different? In this case, for this client, I was doing a very major overhaul of a report to make it run faster. And I just needed a way to spot check my work and make sure the output was what I expected it to be. So I think that'll take us to the top of the hour here. Again, I'm recording this ahead of time, broadcasting it live. I will be in the chat when it broadcasts live. So hopefully there's been some comments and we've been interacting in the chat. But hopefully you found a piece of this useful, or maybe the whole thing. I know, at least for me, this was a way for me to get it out there so I can refer back to this maybe in a couple years when I run into a similar situation. And now I have a way to go back and remember what it is that I did. All right, I think that'll do it for today. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next ogforums.com/live broadcast. All right, well, that's it for now. We'll catch you on the next episode of ogforums.com Real Talk. Thanks for listening, and take care.